Hi, welcome to this Roboflow training movie. In this training movie, I will show how a workflow can catalog a file and look at the same time for the same file with .xml and then import the metadata from that XML file. Let's first do a little run of the workflow. And if we have a look in the Cumulus catalog, we see that we have a record, and this record has been moved to the vault. It's in the vault, and it has been renamed. Don't mind the name, it's wrong, but it's an example. We will see it in the explanation of the workflow. And it picked up different values from the XML. In your own catalog, these could be separate fields, so it would not be in the notes field, but I don't have all these different fields, so I've just added them all to the notes field. Notice that it has determined that this is a version 1 file. If we go to the workflow, show log, we see that it has first cataloged the file, then it was reading the XML file, and by reading it, it turns it into tags that are available in the workflow. So each of these keys become a value, become a key that you can call up with a tag script parameter, and then it will return its value. And that's how we pick up several of these parts that you will recognize in the workflow, like this part is the type that we pick up, and the IDN ID number tip is a part that we pick up, etc., etc. How does the workflow do this? Well, first of all, it's a drop folder workflow, so it's looking into the drop files folder. I'm making sure that nobody by accident drops an XML file in there, or at least it can be dropped in there, but that it gets processed by the workflow. And then it has a path definition of where to look for the XML file of the dropped file. In this case, I defined a folder where to look, and I'm picking up the file name without extension. The -ext means without extension, .xml. So it's looking for that file in that other location with a .xml. I'm using a catalog where I catalog the files, an asset handling set, the permission template. If something is wrong in the workflow, it can be notifying an email address, so you could remove this if necessary. Then it won't send a mail, it will just log if there's any problems. And then you can set a target file name. Since in this example I did not have different fields to pick up the value, as an example I just picked up some random fields like the ID, the original record name, and a status field, which the catalog doesn't even have, and then the original file extension. So after processing the file, that's what I'm picking up. And if you remember looking in the log, you see that this was the original file name. And if you look in Cumulus, it has this original file name with a prefix of the ID, and then a null. Null because the status field doesn't exist, and so it has no value. And then, or maybe it exists but doesn't have a value anyway, it has no value, as you can see here. And then the original file extension. And so that's how you concatenate field values to get a new value of a file. So you can change that in whatever fields you need. But the most powerful part of the workflow is this metadata parameters. In the metadata parameters, you define all the different parts of the metadata that it should populate. So what we have here is a column that it will try to pick up a value from some kind of stored field. It will evaluate it, and if the evaluation is true, then it will perform this part. It will set a certain field to a certain value. If it can be executed always, if there is no condition, then you can put just the word true here, and dot star means any character. So then the first 4 here are examples of field values that will always be set. If your field is called GTIN, then of course you put this GTIN here in the field name. As I said, I don't have all these different fields in my catalog, so I just prefixed the value so that in the notes field we would clearly see what there is to pick up and what the result was. So it starts by looking for this particular tag. Remember, if you look at the XML file, you can see that this has a complex structure, but it says data nature / products / product. And then we come to the part where it's looking for, and that's how it constructs the whole part. That's how it gets everything. Products, product, then ID number GTIN. And that's how it finds that value. And that's what the workflow does. It translates that complex structure into, you could call it an XPath, an XML path, and you can use that XML path to pick up a value. I do the same for build ID. I do the same for hersteller. And then we come to the date, and the date is a little bit special. If you look at the date in the XML, where is it? It's somewhere. Let's search for it. Control underscore up. Date gültig. There it is. You see it's day, month, year. But to be able to set that to a date field, if you want to set it to a text field, it doesn't matter. You can set it just like this. But assuming that you want to use this date, then you might want to set this date to a date field, and in that if that is the case, the date field has to be formatted the other way around. Let me show you what the result was of my formatting of that date. It returns the year, the month, the day, and then the time. And that's a value you can set to a date time field. Otherwise, if it's the other way around, it will never take the right value. So that's why in the action, in the parameters of this workflow, I'm picking up first of all the tag with this value, but then I'm saying give me the substring of that text and give it from character 6 up to 10. And so I'm picking up that way the date from that value, and then I'm concatenating that with putting here a dash in between, and then saying I want from 3 to 5, and then again a dash, and I want 0 to 2. It counts 0 base, so 0 is the first character. And then I add a dummy date because it needs, a dummy time because it needs a time to be able to ingest. So that's how it does the ingestion of the date. Then we come to the type of document. The type is picked up from this value, this binary type, and that type value or type value has a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, a number. And I was asked to be able to map this to a value. So this is how you can easily do that. You can just say 1, 2, 3, 4, and when it's one of those values, it will end up with a type 1, 2, 3, 4. You can make this list as long as you want. You can go on to 5, 6, 7, 8, so whatever numbers exist. And finally, it will put that in here. It will put that in here, and then you see the assignment of the value. Then the last part was calculating the version number of this field. Calculating the version number means that I had to pick up the second part of the file name after an underscore. So in the workflow itself, I split the file name into an array with a separator of underscore, and then based on that, I calculated, I stored that array in memory. So for when I'm setting these values, I'm able to use that parameter, and that parameter is called file name parts. And then I'm saying here, I want to use the second part. And if that second part does not exist, it will return no number. The logic is that if there is a number there, then that is the version number. And so that's how that picks up the version number. And then the same here below, it automatically does the opposite. It says if, and so here it is from 1 to 9, so version 0 does not exist. It's version 1 to 9, and then of course it could be 10, 11, 12, or 110, 11, 12, etc. as well. In that case, it will just pick up that number. If that second part is not a number, which we specify here, which means the first character is not a number from 1 to 9, then it will put here that it is a version 1 file. And in this case, the original file name was _f in the second part, so that is definitely not a number. So that's why it's version 1. So that's how this workflow is technically working, and you can add any expand your list in any part here. It can of course be very simple to configure. Just copy whatever values you have there and modify them to the real field names. And here same for the renaming, put in the real field names that it needs to pick up, and then it will rename to that particular name. So thank you for joining this training movie, and see you on the next one.